As you know, this evening is about our seed funding and to hopefully provide you with everything you need to know in order to start planning your application. So I'm going to hand over to Rich now, who is going to tell you more about that. Rich.
Fantastic. So we've got about 15 minutes for this section. I'm going to set my clock running to make sure I don't go on. And in that 15 minutes, I'm going to talk through the wonderful Transition Together Seed Funding 2024, all you need to know. I'm going to give you a flyby through this document we've created, mapping out the territory of how to apply. And I'm going to talk about 4 things: what's on offer, the eligibility criteria, which would be really relevant to the folks brand new to transition towns, questions you will have to answer for full and partnership grants, and a bit about the timeline. After that, I'm going to give you some overview flavors running through the projects that are happening right now as part of our previous funding round. So that's what we're going to do over the next 15 minutes. So the first thing to do, and I think Emily is going to screen share the all you need to know and try and keep up with that flyby. Let's see how we go. I'm just going to pop that on there. The first thing I'm going to do is share with you, if I can get to it. Oh, because of the screen share, my screen has done funny things. Let's see if I can get to it. Yes. So I'm going to pop in the chat some links as I go. This is the first one in case you haven't heard of the All You Need to Know document. Okay, so I'll pop that in there for you. And all the information you need is right there. The clue's in the name. And next, we're going to look at what's on offer. So this is the last round of confirmed funding, as Rob was saying. We're giving out a whopping £270,000. You're welcome to celebrate that if you like. Literally got it in a briefcase under my desk to award to projects by potentially 300 transition groups in England, Wales, and Northern Ireland. There are 3 categories of grants available: micro grants from £100 to £500, full grants from £500 to £5,000, and partnership grants up to £10,000. So let's take a little bit more of a dive into each of them and what they're about. So micro grants between £100 and £500. We've earmarked about 40,000 for this category. It's not necessary to apply for the full amount of £5,000. You may just need 150 quid for a facilitator fee, hall hire, garden tools, that kind of thing. We want to make the process as easy and trusting and appropriate to the award amounts as possible. So to apply to the microgrants, all we're asking for is 1-line project title and a single paragraph explanation. We'll get to the eligibility criteria in a moment, but that's all we're asking for the microgrants. And alternatively, you can email or share with us another way, an audio or video application, if that more effectively works for you, of approximately 3 minutes. Microgrant projects will be scored against how well the project demonstrates transition principles. And I'm going to share the next link to transition principles, if you haven't found that already, in the chat just now. There we go. That's in the chat. Just going to navigate back to my script here. Yeah, we're aiming for a really good balance of geographical spread and theme spread. So the microgrants are all about getting small pockets of money right across those 3 countries. Full grants between £500 and £5,000. We've earmarked a pot of £180,000 for this category, and full grants will be scored against each of the following criteria, which of course are in the All You Need to Know, but I want to give voice to them now, and we're going to be talking a bit about them, unpicking them and understanding them more later in the webinar. So of the 5 of them, the first one is, how is the application working for greater social justice and equity, a more inclusive community, and reaching underserved people? Second, how strongly or imaginatively does the project demonstrate transition principles? Third, how does this project involve collaboration with the local community and with new or existing partners? And fourth, show how your group can successfully do the project in the agreed timescale. So all about capacity and decision-making through the group. And finally, 5th one for full grants, how does this project contribute to the creation of livelihoods, pay for some people's time, or enable people who are not able to do unpaid work or volunteer to participate? So thinking about the barriers of the wonderful volunteering, but sometimes that becomes a barrier for people's inclusions. So yeah, we'll spend a bit of time with our speakers unpicking those criteria a bit later on. But now to partnership grants. So partnership grants up to £10,000, and we've earmarked a pot of £50,000 for this category. Partnership grants are about a joint endeavour, including at least 2 registered transition groups. So these are appropriate for larger scale projects and can also include additional partners who are not transition groups. Examples of partnership projects could include projects based on geography. 2 or more neighbouring transition groups may want to collaborate together or set up a regional network or host a regional gathering. It's always great getting people together. Or partnership projects could be based on a theme, one of which we'll hear more about later. In addition to the scoring criteria, the 5 in the full grants, there's 2 more in the partnership grant applications. Evidence of the resolve to work together in partnership and collaboration processes that will be used to deliver the project. So in other words, how are you going to work together? And the second one is, how will this partnership grow the capacity for a geographical or theme network of transition groups to emerge or strengthen? So think about the longevity of the projects and longevity of the connections. So I'll just take a breath, mainly for myself. This is quite fast going through this. And talk about eligibility criteria. So this is the first gateway, basically. Are you eligible to apply? And there's only 2 for this, for the micro and full grants, and a couple more for the partnership grants. So the basic eligibility criteria is the seed funding is for transition groups or hubs in Northern Ireland, England, and Wales, registered with Transition Network. So if you're considering registering, then you'll need to show that you are fundamentally community-led, of and for your place-based community. Holistic in practice. In other words, your group is not based on a single issue and considers first the multiple challenges and possibilities for action in your community before deciding the area of focus. And finally, using transition principles to guide how you operate. So to register on the Transition Network site, I'll pop another link into the chat here. One moment, here we go. That's how you register. That's the map of transition initiatives, and underneath that is links to register. You'll see you'll be joining a family of thousands of groups in over 25 countries across the world. So the second criteria, eligibility criteria, is the grant will need to be paid into a group bank or building society account that requires at least 2 unrelated people to approve all transactions and withdrawals. So if this is not currently possible for your group, if you don't have a group bank account, sometimes it takes a while to set one up. There are options to explore, so do get in touch. And I'm just going to mention the partnership grant eligibility criteria. So this is all about the partnership, basically. Partnership grants will be for a joint endeavour of including at least 2 registered transition groups, as I mentioned before. The partnership grant application will identify a lead partner transition group to whom the grant will be paid. And finally, the third one, the partnership of transition groups will write and agree a memorandum of understanding of how they will work together. And we can do that a bit later after the application process. So we can work that out at the other end once you know you have been awarded the grant, for example. But yeah, that's just again about underlining how you will work together. So that's the eligibility criteria. I'm just going to now mention and give voice to the key dates. So the key dates that you need to know. The application deadline for all grants is 11:59 p.m. on the 7th of January 2024. Believe it or not, in the first round, we did have an application posted at 11:57 p.m. on the closing evening. We'll tell you by February the 5th, 2024, so we'll have about 4 weeks there to make our decisions, the outcome of your grant application. And if your application is successful, we'll aim to transfer the money as soon as we possibly can, bearing in mind that particularly the bank account criteria, but we'll do it on or before the 4th of March. So sometimes it does take a little while to get everything in it, all the boxes ticked, as it were. And we'll also invite you to join Vive, our online platform, to build the cohort of seed-funded projects and keep in touch with you through the seed-funded period, the activity period. The final date is expenditure relating to your project will need to be completed by February 28th, 2025. So you pretty much have a year to do the projects that you want to do. And we've seen in this current batch of projects, some projects complete really quick, particularly the micro grants, and others take the whole year to kind of mature, develop, and then do the activity. We're also going to ask you to report at 2 points. One about halfway through an interim report, and it's a great moment to reflect on how far you've come. It's also a moment for us to support you should the project be going on a slightly different journey, and sometimes they do go on really different journeys, and also for us to share your stories on our social media and whatnot, and invite you to speak in blizzards like the one we're about to have. And before the end of March 2025, we'll ask you for a final report. So this is about finances as well as telling your story. The final thing I'll say in this little flyby through the All You Need to Know, and I'll pop a link in the chat, is we have lots of resources and stories about seed-funded projects, and you can have a look at them on the link in the chat right there. There's lots of lovely blogs been written now, as well as simple shares on social media and whatnot. So for the next 3 or 4 minutes, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what the current crop of projects have been up to. So in the previous round of funding, we supported projects to the tune of £160,000, 70 projects across England and Wales. Northern Ireland is a new link in this round of seed funding. And a bit of the story of what has happened. So we've had starting and reigniting of groups through new websites, logos, launch events, video production, funded roles, and the good old printed flyers, and so much more. We're having more core capacity for running ongoing projects. So some specific examples are developing physical infrastructure of their groups, for example, community garden structures, market stalls, installing solar panels on community allotments in Southall and West London, and a temporary pop-up space for project work in Cheltenham. Relieving admin burdens like paying for insurance or hiring a project officer to develop and implement a strategic plan for volunteer recruitment in Bath. And developing the internal structures for processes, for example, workshops for implementing sociocracy and shared governance, and supporting leadership to develop in volunteer teams and new volunteers to take on responsibilities in Ilford. And also we've had launching new projects, a myriad of new projects. This was the hardest edit to do, but these are the 6 that I picked out. An Active Hope course in Leytonstone, so all about inner transition and inner work for ourselves. Pedal-powered edutainment project in Transition Town IG3 over in East London. Upcycled fashion project, so an event celebrating slow fashion, featuring fixing and swapping and picnicking and parading and tooting, which is my hood. Initiating a mothering group relating to inner transition in Totnes, so focusing on mothering and the role of mothering in our communities. And Community Roots Permaculture Project planted fruit trees and bushes in local council house estates in Great Lever up in Bolton. They're going to be speaking in a webinar later in the autumn, and the list just goes on and on. And the last thing I'll say is about reaching out more proactively. We saw this shape about groups who are reaching out, going, how do we tell this story and invite more people to join in? So Transition Bewdley has been working through the Wyre Forest Green Alliance to widen engagement with people through holding a series of greener living fairs. And continuing in Cambridge, the developments of a resilience web, so an online that was on another one of our skill shares, an online platform to show the wonderful complexity of projects supporting good work in Cambridge. And Sustainable St Albans delivered and coordinated communication campaign across many channels to try and get beyond the green bubble. So they're just a few examples of the things that have been happening in this cohort of projects. I should stop there. I've said so much in so little time, but the All You Need to Know is a really key document to have a look at for your projects this time. Back to you, Rob.
Rich, thank you so much. Fantastic. And just in case there's anyone here from the National Lottery, Rich doesn't really have £270,000 in cash under his desk. So let me tell you a little bit more about now what a Blizzard of Stories is. If this is your first experience of one, we've done this a few times now, and there are currently 70 projects in progress from the second round of seed funding. And the idea is that you're going to hear 6 5-minute presentations from them. So the idea is that they will each have 5 minutes, and I have asked them if they will each have their phone next to them on the table, which they will set with a countdown for 5 minutes, and the 5 minutes will be rigorously enforced. And the idea is that they have 5 minutes in which to blow our socks off with what they've been doing. We like to think of this as being like in a positivity wind tunnel, to fill you with possibility and a sense of the diversity of ideas that are out there. So hopefully that all makes sense. So brace yourselves. You might want to put your seatbelts on for this. First up, we have Anita Roy from the wonderful transition town Wellington in Somerset in the southwest of England. Anita is going to tell us about next steps for the Forest Garden, Fox's Fields land project. Anita, your 5 minutes starts now.
Oh my goodness. No pressure then, lots of pressure. Hello everyone, I'm from Wellington, which is on the Somerset-Devon border. We have an amazing transition town group here. It is just awesome being part of it, and it's lovely to see some of those folks here tonight. I'm going to start screen sharing and telling you a little bit about the Fox's Field Forest Garden, which I hope you can see. The seed funding. Oh God, see what you're doing to me, Rob. It's just all a bit much. Okay. The great thing about the seed funding that you get from Transition Network is that it's not just about nouns, it's about verbs as well. In fact, it's mostly about verbs. Now, verbs are all to do with doing stuff. So it's about enabling us all to take action, which we really need to do. That takes money. We asked last year for things to do with engaging the public, increasing the number of volunteers we had, enabling us to share the skills and experiences with other people so that we can inspire them to also go on a similar kind of journey, to reach out to younger people, and also do that online, which meant what we thought was giving our website a little buff and polish turned out to be a much deeper, bigger, wider, more fantastic overhaul than that. So that was all the doing stuff. We also needed some nouns. We needed some stuff. We wanted to create a place where we could meet on our new forest garden. We wanted to create a place where we could also store some of our tools so they didn't get blown away and rot. That's what we got. We did some school talks. Here are some small people being wowed by the idea of permaculture instead of industrial agriculture. They loved it. And the most exciting thing for me, I think, that's come out of this is that as a result of all of the outreach work we've been doing, we have two other groups that have been inspired to come along on this journey. One, I think we got Christina and Trish from the wonderfully named Twig, Tree and Wildlife Group in South Petherton. So we're hoping that they will join the Transition Network and come along with us on their own journey. So we've been talking a lot to them about how our experiences could help them. And there's another group that have been inspired by our successes on the forest garden to make their own forest garden. So we've been helping to train a group in Cossington Community Woodland up near Bridgewater. And here's Helen Gillingham pointing at stuff and cutting out circles and planning a new community forest garden site in Cossington, which we're very excited about. We have this idea that we could twin them. So this is a little idea to twin the forest gardens that we are inspiring or that are starting up with our current forest garden, so I have this fantasy of a network of forest gardens across the country, which are all kind of sister plots. Anyway, 1 minute, 30 seconds ago. Oh God. Okay, so one of the things that we had to do was to make a beautiful place to sit on the forest garden, because we can't all stand all the time, we're knackered. We were able to pay for this fantastic guy called Stefan Jennings to help run a workshop with these little kids from the local school and build a new willow bench on our forest garden, which has been a huge hit. And the nice thing is, that little girl in the middle with the yellow t-shirt, I saw her the day after we'd finished this with her little friend going, I did that bit. That bit's mine. And she's still pointing to all the little twigs in the bench. There's me. That's actually her leg and arm behind. And that's what it looked like, which is fantastic. And just lastly, to give you a sense of just how much you can achieve in a small space of time, this is Fox's Field Forest Garden in January this year. This is what it looked like in July. It is absolutely astonishingly amazing. We had roughly 30 hours per week of volunteers coming onto the field and doing stuff. That's 1,440 hours in a year. And I think that's a very conservative estimate. This is what it looked like in June. We like to have our cake and our tea and have fun while we're doing our stuff. And this is what it looked like in October. The magic. Oh, there you go. I've finished my timing. Thank you very much. Ta-da!
Wow, Anita, beautiful, beautiful time management, an inspiring example to all who come after you. Thank you so much. And having visited Wellington, I can assure you that it's even more amazing in reality than it is in the photographs. Anita, thank you so much. So now we're going to move from land to water, and we're heading southwest from Wellington. Claire Jeffrey from Friends of the River Exe is going to tell us about the River Exe Transition Partnership. Rich mentioned partnership grants. So here's a beautiful story from Claire about a partnership grant in action. Claire, your 5 minutes starts now.
Hi there, everyone. My name is Claire Jeffrey, and I'm a friend of the River Exe. There's my logo. Friends of the River Exe. It's a transition partnership project that was seed funded by Transition Together. On to slide 2, please, Emily. So we started out as an idea of 3 transition groups with a shared concern. They were Transition Exmouth, Transition Exeter, and Sustainable Tiverton. And they'd also been inspired by an artist-led organisation called Tidelines, who brought together science and art to respond to the climate and nature crisis around the estuary of the Exe, and end sewage convoys and pollution Exmouth Escape, who've been finding gaps in data about pollution in the Exe. And the 3 transitions groups realised that the river could reveal the wider ecosystems that are being exploited by human behaviour. It's like a sort of gateway issue to people who might not normally think about sustainability, because everyone cares about river pollution. So they were extremely happy to receive a Transition Together Transition Partnership seed funding grant, and employed Mary, who's the one in the green hat, and me as joint coordinators. Next slide, please. So first of all, we wanted to include as many diverse users of the river as possible to create a community around the Exe. So in April this year, we invited people living up and down the river to 3 river conversations, one in Tiverton, one in Exeter, and one in Exmouth. And there, over 200 people pledged to take action. And that's how our activity groups were formed. There was such a huge range of people. Some had a sort of cautious, more conservative approach, whereas others had a creative spark and thought laterally about ways of doing things. Some bringing a sort of spiritual or a creative or a direct action approach. So next slide, please. So second, we wanted to act on the desire of so many to improve the ecological quality of the Exe by monitoring. And we've actually been completely overwhelmed by the number of people wanting to train as citizen scientists. And that was delivered by our partners, West Country Rivers Trust, and supported with a Sea Changers grant to pay for equipment so that no one had so that cost wasn't a barrier to getting involved. Such amazing people came forward. We had specialists in regenerative farming, Himalayan balsam clearing, seagrass monitoring, conservation, crayfish management, lawyers, landowners, canoeists, vets, journalists, politicians. The list was endless. And so we were also able to set up a legal action group, a direct action group, a festival organizer group, and a fundraising group. So informed by all this expertise, you'll see on the right, we've now have on our website a useful resource for people who might not want to act as a group, but would prefer to act individually, on what actions they can take to help clean up the Exe. And the other thing about this huge diversity of people involved and their generosity with their time and expertise is that we felt empowered to push the boat out a little further. And what we're on now is a journey to encourage a shift more towards self-organising. So that's an interesting learning there about subsidiarity, to encourage more organising. As coordinators, we have 16 hours a week between us. So it relies on self-organising. So next slide, please. Our festival, which is a new festival of the Exe that we ran in the week of World Rivers Day, which was the 18th to 24th of September, proved that a sort of very devolved model of self-organising was possible. So our volunteers organised, for example, the walk that reconnects, which is the bottom middle picture on Powderham Castle. We partnered with Powderham Castle to do that. The Exmouth Quakers ran some absolutely amazing events, an evening stillness meditation at the water's edge, there on the middle on the left, a very exciting night swim, which you can see on the bottom right in very turbulent water. We partnered with Tiverton Museum to record older people's memories of the Exe as it used to be long ago. And our finale was Tide Lines salmon run that followed the migratory path of the struggling Atlantic salmon. So last slide, please. So for me, it's been a really nourishing way of experiencing how society can work together in person and locally to take action, to care about the ecological systems that we're in. And the generosity of people involved has been awe-inspiring. The sense of sharing different specialist knowledge, practices, ways of being, different generations as well, people opening up and listening to different views that they might not normally be open to. So what started as an idea of 7 people in 3 transition groups has ended up as a community of over 300 people up and down the river. And we're looking forward to 3 more river conversations this month for us to co-create our next chapter together. Thank you. I've done it. Just about.
Thank you, Claire. Amazing. Amazing. Well done. Thank you. Thank you. So hopefully, so yes, thank you. So from grand partnership projects, like we've just heard about, to the second transition group to ever form in the UK, Transition Town Lewes, we're going to hear from Sue Fleming, who's going to tell us all about the Future Travelling Roadshow with a specially created video and their outreach and sharing project. Sue in Lewes, over to you.
Hello. Yeah. So in Lewes, we've been going quite a long time as a transition group, and we're really very well served here. We're amalgamating and getting even larger and stronger by becoming part of Lewes Climate Hub, and 32 groups are sort of joining us in the town as a centre now. But I was very aware that in the countryside, we just didn't have anything near the same going on. So we decided we'd take this out to the countryside and oh gosh, time has gone on too quickly, sorry. Very distracting. And I was very keen that the people who were joining us, one is has a Green Cuisine Trust. It's a charity. She does a lot of work with food, Daphne Lambert, and that she needed paying for this. We've all been volunteers for so long, and the wonderful thing about this grant was that I could have professionals who could actually come out with us on these. So we decided to go to these villages. We decided to join on their fairs where there would already be people wanting to start up a group, and we would encourage them. So we had food and energy, and we wanted to make it more fun. So we had a professional musician who also makes his living going around telling stories about climate change, but playing it on the guitar and hopefully making it fun. So see the video of what we decided to do this summer. See how it looks.
The Future Roadshow, that's what we're doing today. Okay. And we need to have a think about how we can invent the future that we want, yeah? Because we can do that. Like when you grow up, you can do what you like, create the life that you want.
Well, the Travelling Roadshow was all about taking everything that we've been doing in transition town Lewes over about 15 years now, taking it out wider into the villages, into the countryside.
Two things, that depends on how much salt you used, which would slow it down, and the temperature. So the warmer it is, the quicker it'll be. But I'd say between 7 and 10 days, and you can put the lid on and leave it in a cool, dry place.
So here we are in Peacehaven with the Travelling Futures Roadshow, and very happily next to a Vesco as well. So we're looking forward to a day of meeting loads of people, having loads of interesting conversations and sharing some of the things that we're passionate about, such as all of these juicy vegetables, homemade bread.
Because they get all the nutrients they need to grow from the soil. So when the soil is healthy, absolutely packed full of teeny numbers of microorganisms.
There you go, magic beans. And I'll tell you, pens, plastic, electric sockets, everything elastic, sunglasses, sellotape, sun cream and soap, rulers, radios and bits of old rope, all of that made using oil. And tyres, TVs, telephones and toys, plastic hookahs that make a funny, ring the bell, cars, carpets, computers and candles, hairspray, hoovers, hearing aids and... You're on fire today. Wax, crayons, washing lines and wellies, glue, grease and petroleum, fishing line, fertiliser, fake fur and foam, makeup, medicines and mobile. Yay! Okay, so here we are. We're setting up another future roadshow from Transition Town Lewes, but also from the Climate Hub, which we're really excited about. We've got a Vesco here as well, the Energy Champions, and of course in the middle we have the Wheel of Fortune interactive show. So we're excited about how all of this can show examples of, as communities, we can get together and make lots of local things happening. For example, we've also got examples of local food and what we can grow, but also what we can preserve and ferment.
We want to engage, especially with children, by the music was absolutely fantastic in that. We also went to a much bigger place, Peacehaven, where with the food as well as the music, and the food message was very good there and very different, and we had slightly more diverse backgrounds of people who had in their cultural history known about preserving and drying foods in a way that we were talking that we talked to had some ideas to take away. They had some inspiring conversations and some really practical things, which is why I think transition really works. People understand it. It's the simple things that you can do, and that brings empowerment and hope at a time when people know that actually, you know, we are right up against it now. So they really want to find simple, doable actions.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Excellent. So, and now we're going to head north from Lewes to meet with Alan Bolden from the Bolton Diggers, who has 5 minutes to tell us all about their Alternative Economy 2023 Skills Building Reconomy project. Alan, the floor is yours.
Hello, can you hear me?
Perfect.
Yeah, okay. I'm Alan from Bolton Diggers, Bolton in Lancashire. We've been involved in community food projects for many years, especially food growing, with various groups, including a lot of hard-to-reach groups. We have a strong belief in developing a sustainable economy. We're always exploring ideas around the commons, what you call the commons, about prosperity being found in the form of shared resources and assets. Just to go back a little bit, when in 2020 COVID-19 came along, we had to reorganize what we were doing a lot. And at that time, we set up a new group called Bolton Mutual Aid to support people self-isolating. So we attracted about 30 to 40 new volunteers going out to people and supporting people in the community. As we came out of the pandemic, we thought a lot about the effect of it on the local economy and the precarity of local economies, and but we also picked up on elements of resilience, which we noticed, especially the importance of grassroots connections and suppliers. At this point, we approached Transition Network, and they kindly gave us some funding to put on a series of talks on the theme of alternative economies. So we invited speakers from various cooperatives, social enterprises, craftspeople, and so on. And we had some really good discussions around, for example, the decline of town centres and alternative distribution hubs, such as car boot sales. Following on from this, at the end of last year, Transition gave us more funding to put on a follow-up to that, and a natural development of it was to put on workshops, which we did this year, again with this alternative economies theme. But this time the emphasis was more on sharing practical skills from experts, from local people who might not otherwise engage with them. Free workshops. Now, I would say that any group organising a project might be doing it on top of the normal group activities, and those activities themselves might take place on top of having to go out to work to pay for your bills. So given this, I think it's very important when devising a project to keep things simple and manageable, to do doable ideas which lie within your capacity in terms of time and skills. So given this approach about simplicity, we planned out a series of workshops over the spring and summer, taking place on Saturdays to include as many people as possible. We sought out suitable providers who we thought offered the type of skills which we think are important in a sort of future, more sustainable economy. So we've had sessions on, for example, fruit tree maintenance, mushroom growing, beekeeping, woodworking, willow fence weaving, sourdough bread baking, and food preservation. And we've still got a couple more to do in the next month or so. We did them in different locations on our community gardens, mostly. And we were really lucky with the weather. Every time we did a workshop, the sun came out, and even though it had been raining for a week before, so we're really happy about that. And also we did it in a local community centre as well, which is a nice little accessible place. We promoted it just doing simple, colourful, old-fashioned posters, which seemed to work well. We did a few. We distributed them on around social media, and did some paper copies of that as well. And it all worked well. We've had the workshops have been very well attended. We've had between 15 and 25 people to each one. It's brought us into contact with new people, or it's reinforced relationships which we already had. And in terms of the providers of the workshops, it's supported their livelihoods. So we've got in contact with new groups, new community networks, and official agencies. And within the town, I think we've raised our profile a lot in the work that we do. And it's helped in our push to get people interested in also developing a strategy for local food in Bolton. Most importantly, it has, of course, inspired people to try new things and to go away and pursue them either at home in their domestic economy, or to go away and pursue them in collective settings, perhaps in the local community group or allotment association. Final thing we did which I think is really important, is monitoring and evaluation. We just at the end of every session, we got everyone to fill out a simple form saying did they find the workshop useful, what ways did they find it useful, and we've captured all that information, as well as doing loads of photographs and short films as well. We didn't have the things we've done as part of a logical progression, really. We haven't had a template, and we've just developed our ideas and activities as we've gone along with a suck it and see sort of attitude, really. It's worked out quite well, and what I would say generally is just re-emphasize that thing about keeping it simple, because it's something that's worked for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Alan. Amazing. Much appreciated. So now we're going to head back down south to the nation's capital, where we're going to hear from Tuli and Halima from Camden Think and Do, who are going to tell us about their Energy Savers Club Shakti Savers Energy Project. Over to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Halima and my colleague Tuli, and nice to meet you all. And I want to say thank you for having us on here, and thank you for Transition Together for providing us funding for our project, which is Shakti Savers, in Bengali meaning energy. And it's been great, fantastic project that we've been starting, and it's continuing throughout the few months from last year. So thank you so much. The project that we started is called Energy Savers Club in the local community of Sumstown in Camden Town, where we have a vast population of local estates and varied communities of different backgrounds, from different people from different areas and different local communities, all together in a very compact space as well. While we were doing a session in one of our sharing spaces, if you haven't heard about it, you could probably look at us up on the Think and Do website. These are sharing spaces which we have been opening up TRA halls to provide spaces for the local community and local residents to come in and share ideas and share skills and stories and food about climate change, recycling, more awareness about climate, and loads of things that were happening once a week in the halls. These are things that we were really proud of. Residents were really interested in coming to these sessions, and every week we had interest from residents and how we can support them. So we'll ask them how we can support them further in their daily lives, whether it be climate change or something that they need help with and support. So we were doing an Energy Savers advice and tip from Tanuja, who's from up North London, and one day we had a session and we were talking to one of the residents, and they really wanted help and support in providing LED bulbs, which was years back provided by one of the local councils. And we thought we could start this session and start a project called Light Fantastic, which we started at Walker House, one of the estates in Sumstown called Walker House, and we fitted around. With these images here, you can see we did an energy event as well at Walker House in the summer last year, and this was very successful, where we spoke to the local residents and helped support them and talked about energy advice and energy saving tips. We provided energy devices like standby plugs, power devices, free LED bulbs. And with that, we also started a project called Light Fantastic, where we were able to replace their fluorescent tube lights to LED and their CFL bulbs in the bathroom to LEDs, which was fantastic because we knew that majority of the energy consumptions or high usage of energy consumption was within the kitchen and the non-LED bulbs. This was what we were passionate about, making changes that residents wanted to see changes, not just something we were talking about. So we wanted to help them reduce their energy bills as well as CO2 emissions within their home. That was our main target as well, to try and make them understand how to reduce CO2 emissions within your home, as well as providing energy efficiency with the LED bulbs. And then we started to speak to the residents about starting an Energy Savers Club, which we have a WhatsApp group with around 200 residents, local residents. the 200 local residents where we were door knocking. We've gone to 6 estates throughout Camden, and we've rolled this out, this Energy Savers Club, and we have produced great interest from the residents. We've provided them with draft proofing devices like draft proofing strips. We've also had local residents make draft excluders from recycled materials by hand, and stuffing them with, old jumpers and old socks, which was excellent, in our hall. That's fantastic. And, those kind of advice and tips, we were trying to support our residents in finding solutions to help, not just in a cold winter, majority of our residents saying we're switching off our heating, and we had elderly residents coming in with concerns of about their bills going up. So we wanted solutions that were easy and accessible for everyone, and also changing habits was very important for us, as well as teaching local residents how to change habits within their homes to help reduce their bills, not just to change something, but regularly in a constant but very easily accessible way to change these kind of habits that we all have. Sorry, I haven't got limited time, but the Energy Savers Club here, you can see Tanuja from Power Up North London with the glasses, talking and discussing tips on how to reduce energy within their homes and energy consumption, as well as also providing free devices. We were giving regular sessions, workshops every week in our halls, sharing spaces, and then we will go back speak to the residents and talk to them about their energy bills. A lot of them didn't know how to read their energy bills, like, kilowatt hours, what did that mean, which energy company would be better for them to help reduce their bills. These kind of things that we wanted to support our local residents with, and which was great when we had all these sessions going on. Also with the Light Fantastic, it was not just changing the bulbs, it was getting the residents involved and understanding these kind of changes can long-term help the planet. We also felt that this was great in engaging, because we had a great trust with our residents and they came to us for support, and it was interesting to find out a lot of issues that everybody had with the cost of living crisis. We could support them in this way in making one change within their homes, and regularly with these energy saving tips on our WhatsApp group. We had also funded from the Transition Together, we got some local teenagers to do some little video clips of how to save energy within your homes, like, putting a hoodie on instead of, putting a t-shirt on and putting the heating up, just lowering. Is really kind of fun and easy, instead of having just, images of like captions and written how to save energy. But it was nice to have teenagers involved as well, so we wanted to involve the youngsters in our community. So it was a great project, and hopefully we'll be continuing this autumn and this winter, sorry. And thank you so much for listening to our story, and we hope to further this and continue with it further out into London. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Halima. Thank you so much for joining us. Fantastic. Wonderful. And last but by absolutely no means least, we're off to Wales. We're going to hear from Susan Holmes from Carmarthen Together about their big launch and outreach project. Susan, over to you.
Okay, thank you. I'll just try and do my screen sharing. Okay. Yeah, so my name's Sue Holmes. I'm from Carmarthen in West Wales, and I'm from the group Carmarthen Together, which is quite a new group. We've only been together less than a year. And what a year it's been. We've all been involved, all of us, in some sort of activism over the time that we've known each other, but this is something new for us. We wanted to do something that was a bit more positive and centered around the local community. And we knew from all the reading we've done about transition groups is that you've got to find a way to launch yourself out there into the community, because people don't hear about you unless you make a bit of a splash. And we weren't content with one splash, we wanted 3. So we decided that we would have 3 different events. And the first one is our school's climate conference. So we managed, with the help of our town council, to bring pupils from 10 of our primary schools all together in the town hall. And we had loads of events going on. We had a pedal powered electricity, so kids could see just what energy really was and how difficult it is to generate and how precious it is. We did lots of planting things, and we had quizzes. And then we asked the children, how would you like your future to be? And what do you want your town to be? And that was really, really interesting. And then our second event, and our third as well, sort of joined, and we named these Our Town, Our Future. And in these, the first one, we got together all of the people we could think of. So that was 13 different groups that we knew about already working in Carmarthen. And we said, come along and have a chat to everybody that's coming along to the audience tonight. So we gave them 3 minutes each. We said, tell us what you do, who you are, and what you need from your community. And it was such a successful night. And we had a great curry that was cooked for us by a local chef who has just started up a pay what you can cafe. And so that was fantastic. It brought him into the whole thing as well. And the most exciting and lovely thing about this was that after we'd finished eating, we had some tea and coffee. And when we were going around clearing up plates and things, this is absolutely genuinely true. The things that we kept hearing people were saying were, I had no idea there was so much going on in Carmarthen. I had no idea. And the other thing was, oh, I think we could work on that together. And it was exactly what we'd planned for the evening. It was exactly what we wanted to come out of it. So as they left, we gave them an invitation to the final of the sort of launching events that we decided to run. And that was a bit more of a, let's find out what you think you need or what you think the town needs. So we ran it a bit like a people's assembly. We sort of group people into sort of small groups around a specific subject. And we asked them all about things like, travel, transport and energy and nature. And we got all their ideas to give us something to work on in the future. And the other big part of this for us was that in part as launching ourselves into the community, we have to think always very carefully in Carmarthen about the bilingual aspect. Carmarthen is a very high population of Welsh speakers, first language Welsh speakers. So everything we do, we have to make sure we do it bilingually. So our website is still not quite finished, but it is really getting there. And the seed funding has made this possible for us. We could never have done it without this money. And we also realised, just going back to the other event, that actually launching an event like this bilingually is not only very, very difficult, but actually can be quite expensive. So what we've learned is that we really do need to bring some more first language Welsh speakers into our group, which is proving to be a bit tricky, but that's a challenge for us going forward. And the last thing that we wanted the money for was for the kind of promotional equipment, if you like. So we bought a gazebo, we bought feather flags, we bought banners, and we sort of built everything really around this Our Town, Our Future thing. We decided that, this is what transition really is all about, isn't it? So that was kind of the tagline for everything. And we bought these wonderful high-vis jackets as well, which have popped up in hundreds of places around town. So we've got us here and helping at the mayor's race. We go litter picking, the River Festival, the one on the left there, we've just been planting daffodil bulbs. So like these were all things that were sort of community engagement that meant that we were actually seen by people. And we realised actually that what it was needed really was that people needed a focal point, a place to get together. And one of the projects that really worked for us this year was a thing called New to You, which isn't a new idea really. It's just about clothes and toy swapping for children. But we found that there was such a need for this, and it kind of made us realise that there is an appetite in Carmarthen for, a less money orientated economy. And we already had a repair cafe, and we thought about setting up a library of things. And New to You was so popular, we wanted to find a home for it. So the big exciting news for us is that we've now actually just secured a premises for ourselves on a meanwhile lease. As you can see, it's huge. And that's the only reason it's empty, because nobody else can afford it and we aren't paying the same kind of rates, which is fantastic. But that's our really exciting news. And the three of us sitting in the middle looking really serious is because we also managed to secure some funding, not from the seed funding this time, but to employ somebody to help us with this, which is really important. And I think this is something that we are going to be coming back to you again this year to help us with if we possibly can. But basically Carmarthen Together has launched, it has landed, and people do know about us. And you'll be able to watch our story from Zero, which is our new community environment centre, in the year coming up. So that's me.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Susan, so much. And hopefully, like me, after that blizzard of stories, your cheeks are now stinging and your heart is full of wonder at what people can do when they step up and are aided and supported by some seed funding support. And hopefully your imagination is now racing about what you might be able to do where you live. So before we move into a more in-depth digestion of what we've heard and what it might inspire you to do, we've a couple of questions to ask our Blizzardeers. And Rich, do chip in if as the person who's really overseen both rounds of this, you feel you have anything useful to add. So firstly, I was one of the themes that is in some of our stories here around social justice and equity. We know that challenges around social justice and equity land differently in different places and different communities across England and Wales. It'd be great to hear from a couple of you. How did action on social justice and equity come to life in your project? Maybe Alan, could we start with you?
Bolton generally is not a very wealthy place, and this is reflected in local poor health outcomes. And part of that is diet related, and especially in the areas where our projects are based, such as Dean, Great Lever and Halliwell. I would say that most of our participants in our workshops have been on low or fixed incomes, so they might not have otherwise had the disposable income to try things out if they had to pay for them, but they still wanted to do them. And judging from all our feedback, there's not been one negative comment. It's all incredibly positive, enthusiastic and grateful. So it has got new people trying new and practical skills. So I think it has, in that sense, but addressed equity issues, and I felt the workshops themselves, the process in itself has been they've been empowering collective experiences.
Great, thank you. And Halima or Tuli, would you have any thoughts on that? Just unmute your mic.
Yeah, sorry, can you say the question again, Rob?
Yeah, so we're just about what the elements of social justice and equity that you were able to bring to life in your project. How was that reflected in what you did?
Yeah, like Alan was talking about earlier, we do work with the local residents. Majority of whom are basically on low income, large families, overcrowding in the estates, and we realized that was a major factor in us helping support them with the energy crisis at the moment, helping reduce bills with the energy advice and tips that we're providing. So it was important for us to go out there and share these tips, and we can all make a change within the homes. Providing these kind of things, valuable tips, was vital for us to make the residents aware and understand how we can all support each other in learning to behavioural change, as you can say, within the homes, to help those, the cost of living prices go down by changing certain things within the homes. And yeah, it was important for us to have that relationship and share that those kind of advice we can get from local expertise like Tanuja from Power Up North London, and other people from different organisations.
Thank you so much. And as Rich mentioned when he was talking about the criteria for applying, one of those is around how transition principles are reflected in what you apply for. So it'd be interesting to hear, maybe Claire, Friends of the River Exe, which particular transition principles came to the fore when you were putting your application together, thinking about your project?
Thanks, Rob. The strongest one really for us was the experiential learning network. That's essentially what whole thing is, Friends of the River Exe. We didn't have a vision beforehand of exactly what we'd be doing. We're all kind of iteratively working it out as we go along. And we knew there was a passion around the river, and by connecting many different views and kind of people with different livelihoods along the river, they could then blossom into sort of collaborations and generate action. Also, subsidiarity. I think at our River Conversations, we also use citizen as an assembly type approach. We're very interested in what would come up through the kind of experiences and thoughts of all the people present. And the way we organised our festival was completely devolved. So it wasn't us sitting there, you know, stage managing. It was entirely dependent. It was not going to run if we didn't have volunteers to take it forward. And we had so many different volunteers. And also the interesting thing about the partnership, the transition partnership, was the sort of sense of collective responsibility of the core group, drawn from these different transition groups that hadn't connected previously. And that was an amazingly rich sort of and supportive kind of atmosphere, because people were bringing their contacts, their skills, so much they were bringing into the room, and it was sort of magnifying by being together. And I'd say the last one would be Head, Heart, Hands, because in a sense, the legal work which I'm involved in, looking at things like Parliament of the Waters or rights of nature or bathing water status, that's very much head. The festival is heart, how we feel and honour this being, the river. And CSI is hands. It's getting out there, getting your hands in the water, and Himalayan balsam clearing and river cleanups, picking up litter, etc. So I think that was another way that it met it was aligned with those principles.
Fabulous. Thank you. And Susan in Carmarthen, how would you look at that? Which principles were useful to you?
Well, the main thing that we focused on was the collaboration, really, the collaboration and synergy thing. We thought that there wasn't a space for these people to find each other, and there wasn't an opportunity for people to come together, really. We realised, like I say in my sort of talk earlier, we knew there was lots happening, but nobody knew about it and nobody knew how to find each other. So we decided that, as a transition group, that was one of the core things that we were there to do, really. We're not there to do everything ourselves. We're there to help other people do things. And, that's all about collaboration, isn't it? And also, actually, our town council, who wanted to do stuff, but again, didn't really have a way, bizarrely, to sort of work with the community. They didn't really seem to have a link to the community. It was all there's a council meeting, nobody goes. How do they even contact people, really? So that our group, again, it was all about collaborating with them to enable them to do the things that they were hoping and trying to do, but just didn't know how to. So they were the things that we concentrated on.
Thank you. Which actually leads us really beautifully into this question of local partnership. Which new and existing partners did your project connect with, either through profound, we couldn't do this without you, sort of collaboration, or practical partnership, like amplifying your activity on social media? Anita in Wellington, it'd be lovely to hear on how, on the role of partnership working in what you've been doing in Wellington.
Well, partnership is absolutely like what we're all about, because we're all just little individuals, really. And the fantastic thing about the Transition Town group here, the work that we've been doing, has been just realizing how incredibly lucky we are to have an incredibly supportive town council. So Sue, what you were saying about that link between the transition group and the local authorities, they are desperate to find ways of working with the communities that they are part of, and we are part of them, but somehow it doesn't often work. There's a weird council-y sort of bureaucracy thing that the councillors themselves, who are humans, right, kind of like tearing their hair out and going, well, we have to do it like this, but so we've managed to find ways of like humanly connecting with the humans who run our council, and also collaboratively working within the kind of local governance structures to amplify everyone's good stories. So from the beginning of the forest garden work, we needed to work with the district council, who actually ended up buying the land because they could see an appetite from the local community about what they wanted to do with the land. That happened. That then kind of snowballed into the town council leasing the land, along with the district council buying 65.5 acres in addition to have as a green corridor. Now, Transition Town Wellington is a little group of people who, couldn't possibly manage that. We wouldn't want to. We would kind of burst into tears, possibly of happiness, but certainly of overwhelmedness. So it's absolutely vital that for the health and the thriving of that wider green corridor project, that we have a structure that will involve the town council, the district council, the local wildlife trust, the Wellington community food. So we have a new community supported agriculture farm in our town, which we didn't have a year ago, which is amazing. The Wellington Sports Federation. So we're looking at, active travel and getting people out of their cars and onto footpaths, all of this kind of stuff. So it's I think we are seeing here and how absolutely vital each bit of that jigsaw is. Like, a jigsaw is not much fun if you've just got 3 pieces, but when you start putting those pieces together with other pieces, you've got a whole different picture.
Thank you. And just the last thing that we wanted to explore was around livelihoods. So we're very keen to recognize that paying people for their time can unlock key skills like project management, or enable people to participate who otherwise wouldn't be able to, although the grant levels prohibit paying salaries, unfortunately. But how did people use grants that they got to pay some people's time? Sue, in Lewes, you talked about how you had done this. How was that for you?
Yes, I feel, we've been going quite a long time, and Keith there with the guitar, well, he was first joining Transition 15 years ago, and he's tried to make a living out of this. So he's very passionate. I mean, he does go abroad and things and do this as well. And I felt I've got to a point where I can't just keep asking people to do this voluntarily, because they've chosen this as a really in a very altruistic way, that this is their life's work now. And also Daphne, who has been working for over 30 years around soil and health and gut and immunity and all of this. She has an enormous knowledge, and we're so lucky to have her. But she lives on a pittance. I can't believe how little she survives on. So I don't want to ask these people to always be doing things voluntarily. Our graphic designer, she also has to make a living. So there's a sort of balance, really. There's a lot of people working in the background, and I think, having been in this a while now, I am delighted to see, and it's absolutely right, that people should be paid for what they do. Avesco is a really big energy company now, in terms of, we embrace the whole of this Community Energy South. They do enormous amount of work, they work very hard as a full-time job, some of them. So we're in this sort of transition point, really, of this is what people have been doing for a long time, and they should be able to at least supplement an income, or maybe even make it an actual income for them.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you so much. And for anyone who's listening who's wondering what Ovesco stands for, it's the Ouse Valley Energy Services Company. It's one of the best community energy projects that has emerged through the transition movement. Check them out. They're wonderful. This part now is about giving agency to your ideas. So do raise your hand, either virtually or an actual hand, and we can use this time to share your project ideas as concisely and briefly as you can, please, as there are quite a few of us here. Or you might also want to raise any key questions that you have, which Rich might be able to do his best to answer. Or you might like to share an observation on what you've heard during the blizzard. It's up to you, really. Or you could use the chat, and I'll be keeping an eye on the chat and share any things that come up in there. there. So also, if you have any very technical questions about the process of applying, you could pop those in the chat too. So this is your bit, really. Over to you. I'm just going to go on to gallery view so I can see everybody. So you can either put your hand in the air or press the little handy up icon thing, or use the chat.
I'd just add as well, if you have like technical questions, we'll be highlighting a frequently asked questions webinar for later in November, but it's also real useful to put them in the chat. Then we can email the answers to everybody and build those frequently asked questions type things about the process of applying. So yeah, very useful to put them in the chat, and we'll capture them for later.
Yeah.
Rich, when I was in the breakout room with Nari, she was asking about the criteria. So and she joined late. So if you could make sure that before the end you repost that link to everything you need to know document, that would be very cool.
Super. I'll do that just now. Yeah, and we'll make sure we have it at the end as well.
Thanks.
In Transition Lichfield.
Hello.
Hello.
It's really inspiring listening to everybody's projects that they've done, and some have consisted of loads and loads of parts and have developed and grown and all sorts. I similarly have got lots of ideas and would love to do some similar things in Lichfield, but sometimes it feels a bit overwhelming to be able to put it into practice, even apply for the money and say the right things, and then almost know how to project manage it, even though I've not necessarily got the skills myself, or to find the right people in my group who could help with those things. So I suppose it's, what kind of help could I get if I was saying to you, well, I'd like to do a library of things, for example, which is on my list to sort at some point. I already run a repair cafe. But say, for example, I went down that route, but I didn't know how to go about pulling it off or how much it might cost.
Great. Good question. Rich, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely, Pam. And yes, I have got your email, by the way, from a few weeks ago. I had a week off and then was preparing for this. So just to say that to everyone, I will reply to Pam. You can all hold me to account now. On the email there. Pam, on things like that, I would really point us all to the idea of peer learning as well. There's so many groups doing so many things. Show of hands who's doing repair cafes. Stick your hand up if you've got one close by. How about library of things? Anyone doing libraries of things? Yeah, little hand up in Carmarthen there. Yeah, so there is this idea of peer support, and our platform as part of Transition Together, Vive, which I'll put a link in the chat for if you haven't connected with that already. I know it's a new app. There you go. Thank you very much, Emily. I know it's a new app, but the idea is there's 600 people on there, like the 31 people on this call, doing great things in their communities. And there's specific theme spaces, for example, and geographical spaces. So there's all of that kind of world of peer support to reach out to, I think. With Library of Things particularly, there is an organization called Library of Things that one can reach out to check out how they go about it. They're a little bit all bells and whistles. I know there's varying different ways to do these things. Beautiful cabinets for the tools and tool repairers and things like that. There's other ways of doing it which are a bit more DIY, capturing all those tools that are in sheds only used for 20 seconds. So yeah, peer support would be a key way, and maybe Transition Together could be signposting to those either peer support spaces or those organizations who are supporting particular project themes.
Sally, you're on mute. You just need to unmute yourself.
Hi, sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to know, can you apply for more than one micro grant if you've got different projects in your transition group?
Yes, is the short answer. And what we say is you can apply for up to 2 micro grants, and that's only because of the quantity of applications. In the very first round, I'll tell you, I'm not sure maybe someone's on this call. We'll see if their face goes red. There was a group who applied for 13 micro grants. They caned it. They absolutely went wild with the micro grant applications. And of course, once you get to a point, given we're looking for geographical spread as well as theme spread, particularly with the micro grants, where you just go, I'm just not going to read it past 6 because we've kind of allocated all the money. Do you know what I mean? So we decided to go up to 2 micro grants, and then you've got a really good chance that they'll be considered.
Thank you. Yeah, and just while you're there, is there a time lapse between reapplying for if you've put in an application? Is there a time lapse between
So the way it works for Transition Together and our agreement with our funders, the National Lottery Community Fund, is we have now, looking forward, we have just 1 grant round. So we've got between now and January the 7th, 2024 to apply for this round of funding. So after that point is closed, I mean, one assumption, I guess, is that we have more than £270,000 worth of applications, right? You know, it'd be an interesting problem to have if we had £200,000 worth of applications. We're not necessarily going to give them or award them all because of various technical reasons, never mind the content of the application. And we could run a second round if we had more money left. But our design at the moment is to allocate all that money by application window closed January 7th and allocate the money by February the 5th, I think I said, didn't I? So over that 4-week period, but just 1 hit.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. So we're going to go to Lee in Ivor, and then we have a question in the chat from Jeff B. But Lee, we'll start with you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Yeah, so my question is really about the route for any seed funding. I mean, our position in the Ivors is a right from the start transition group. We haven't even properly agreed a name yet, so it could be Villages Transition, or it might be Transition Ivors or something like that. But my question is, need that delay? We want to get in on this as we can. We've probably got about 5 small projects. River Diggers, yes, I like that. We've probably got about 5 small projects that only might involve 3 or 4 people, so they're not all going to open a bank account. Could we do this through an existing residents association that's well established in the community with its own track record from that, and somehow they could sort of manage the money on our behalf? That's my question.
So if I can decant the question and make it general as such, let me just make sure I'm answering it though as well, Lee. Is the questions about holding the money as a new group, you're not formed as a group yet. So that idea of having a bank account isn't possible because you're not formed yet, etc. And that may all take time to get the right name and the right idea of constitution or how you want to form. So can another organisation hold the money? Is that your question at the nub of it? The answer to that is yes. Yes, so we've got 2 options. This came up in the chat as well. 2 options that we see. There may be other options as well. If you don't have a bank account, and particularly relevant to groups who are just forming, right? And for sure, take advantage of this opportunity, I would say, particularly the microgrant level. You know, that's all about distributing the money for good projects, right? So the 2 answers are, one is use another group to hold the money. And we might work out a little agreement between that. So let's get that on paper so it's really clear. And it may be that you want to contribute some of the grant to the admin of holding the money, particularly with the £5,000 or £10,000 level. There's certain admin overhead to holding that money and getting it out to pay for time or expenses or whatnot as well. So be mindful of that, particularly for the larger grants. And the second, which I'll put in the chat, is this website and app and way of doing it called opencollective.com, which is a way of holding the money not in an individual's bank account, but at the group level when you don't have a bank account. It's the easiest way I can explain it. It's probably because that's the extent of my knowledge of Open Collective, to be honest. But yeah, I'll pop that link in there now. Halima, great to see you. Just seen a ta-ra in the chat there. Great to see you, Halima. See you next time.
Yeah, thank you, Rich.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
All the
Thank
best
you.
for Camden.
So we're going to go to, before we go to Carl and then to Catherine, we have a question that was in the chat from Jeff, who says, we have a small pilot scheme running in Chepstow to lend people an electric bike, try before you buy, to encourage people to swap car journeys for e-bikes. It's hilly here and e-bikes flatten out the hills. I was thinking of applying for a grant to buy more e-bikes that we lend. We only have one at the moment, but I'm thinking of including more outreach, communications, etc. in the application. Would that stand more chance of success? Maybe that's a bit too specific for one application. I don't know, Rich, what's your thoughts? You're muted, Rich.
I am, and something happened to my internet connection as you were getting to the question, so I didn't hear it.
Oh, so the question was, I was thinking of applying for a grant to buy more e-bikes to lend. At the moment, we only have one, but now I'm thinking of including more outreach, communications, etc. in the application. Would that stand more chance of success?
Oh, interesting. So I would really encourage you to think like you're sort of alluding to there, Jeff, right? Yeah, Jeff.
Yeah.
In terms of like going, okay, so one track is to go, hey, an e-bike costs this much. Can we have that much, please? Because we're hitting all the things you said in the message there. But to make that purchase more successful, if you like, thinking about outreach and thinking about connection, also from a social justice angle, I guess, thinking about how can that serve communities where, you know, it's a problem buying a car, or it's a problem, you know, getting around town and accessing town more. So there's a whole load of things that could be interesting in that conversation about how to make an e-bike scheme more effective. And that would certainly enrich an application, I'd say, yeah. So keep going in that direction.
Oh, Transition Chesterfield.
Hi, thank you. Earlier on, towards the beginning of the session, I think it was Rich who mentioned that there was a project where a group had hired a project officer for strategic volunteer recruitment, or setting up a strategic volunteer strategy. And I wonder if you could just tell us quickly a little bit more about that.
That's really interesting. Very keen ears. That was in my very fast flyby, wasn't it, of what's been happening this time round. I'll be honest with you, I harvested that from a summary document, so I'd have to go burrowing a little bit to find more detail on that one, but I can do if that's of interest for sure.
Thanks very much. Yeah,
can you just write that into the chat, interested about, so I can see it later. Thanks very much.
Great. Thank you.
Catherine Lewis, over to you. What's your question?
Hi there. So I'm here wearing two hats. I'm involved in a climate action group down here in Cornwall, and we're about to re-register as a transition group, which I'm quite excited about. But I'm also one of the directors of Cornwall Climate Action Network, and we have 22 groups within the network and are growing and are looking for funding for the network. And I'm just wondering which is the best route for us, because we do have, we have one transition group in the network already, and soon will be another. Could we potentially apply for partnership grant, or would we be better looking at trying to establish as a transition hub for Cornwall, and a transition hub's entitled to apply for seed funding? I don't know enough about the process of setting up as a hub as to whether that is a wrong route. So yeah,
this is a wonderful conundrum, and I love that there's connections happening across Cornwall. Previously, there has been a transition Cornwall network. I think it's TCN. I'll try and dig out the website so you can catch that history if you don't know it. I would say the process of becoming a hub is in the international scale. So that's where the hub registrations happen, and is a process and goes through a bit of a process to go, is this a hub? Is this a transition hub? How does it fit in, and so on. In this time scale, I would say I wouldn't dissuade you to have that conversation with the group if it's the right thing to do. And I can certainly give you some insights about the international scene and what that family of hubs, about 25, 30 hubs across the world, but it's at that kind of connection scale, right? What's also interesting, I think, step by step, is the idea of saying, hey, if it's true, I mean, I would really check with the number of groups in Cornwall there about if it's a shared interest to step closer to the transition town approach, I guess, and the principles and values. And if the answer is yes, then totally, like, 2 or more transition groups registered within that collection of climate action groups and go for the partnership grant in order to stimulate that network connection across Cornwall would make total sense and be completely appropriate to that. The other thing I would say, I guess, is earlier this year we did 2 in-person regional gatherings. Anyone come along to them? One in London, we had Rob did, yeah, and Emily in London. So one in London and one in the Northwest. So 2 very different ones. Here's Phil, he came along to them as well, right? Yeah, sound. So that idea of folding into a partnership grant of that nature, hey, time to get together across Cornwall might be really interesting. And in our experience, that time together is time well spent. It's proper connection, relationship building, and relational scale time. We had like 50 to 100 people coming to those regional gatherings. We're not going to be instigating them this year because they do take a lot of work and a lot of focus. And we are blessed to be paid in our roles, but a small team with lots of different activity to support the transition movement. So we're encouraging that if it's the right thing to do to get together at the regional scale, to direct people to the partnership grants to support that. So there's another idea of the way you could stimulate that network connection in the partnership grant scale. The final thing, which probably pricked Phil's ears up because we work together on it, is we are going through a hub development process in Wales and England at the moment. So it'd be really good to keep in touch if it turns out to be if you imagine that journey going to a conclusion of a hub for the transition groups in Cornwall, then connecting that into the national hub story would be really, really interesting and totally appropriate to have that regional scale and national scale happening, together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, super. Thank you. I'm in touch with Phil, so we can follow up on that. That'd be.
Oh, there you go. Super.
Thank you.
Great.